Hi everyone, good afternoon from Vienna. Welcome to my YouTube channel, Making It in Austria. I'm your host, Adela, and today I have a very special guest, Rafa Nowak. Rafa, welcome.
Thank you for having me here.
Thank you for joining. Do you pronounce L at the end or not?
This is a Polish thing. It's called Rafał. We have two L's. We have a normal Latin L and W, like walking.
Okay, interesting.
So it's Rafał, but most of the people are calling it Raf.
Okay, cool. Didn't know that. So the first seconds I learned something new. I usually say Rafa, I just like there's no L, but now I know better. Rafa, we both are in the IoT industry. Internet of Things, and for most of our viewers might be either they're super excited about it or they're scared about it. They think about automatization, maybe they think about robots, things happening, taking their jobs, security breaches, and so on and so forth. So what's new in the IoT? So what is that you are doing in that field?
So we naturally came to IoT. Infobip is a very young communication platform company. So we discovered, like most of the people around us, that we are starting to communicate on different platforms. So we are communicating via SMS, via email, right now more with the OTT, chat apps, Viber, WhatsApp, Telegram, and so on and so on. And the business part of our life is happening slowly more on all of those channels. So Infobip is a company that very early on created platforms for different use cases, for marketing automation, for customer support, that can push out messages on omni-channel on each of those platforms. And IoT is obviously a functionality which uses communication. So if a sensor of a machine needs to send an alert, for example, somewhere, it happens over a communication. It can be an SMS, it can be a notification somewhere in the system. So our omni-channel platforms help with that as well. And that makes us naturally as well a part of the IoT spectrum. So this is it.
That's it. You mentioned Infobip, and most of our listeners, viewers, they probably never heard about Infobip. So can you tell us a little bit? It's a really cool story.
Yeah, Infobip starts with three founders. Two of them brothers coming from a small village in Austria, where most of the Austrians have been for holiday in Croatia on the seaside. They were fed up with working in a big city for big corporations, and they were smart enough to actually discover that we will communicate soon on a multi-channel, and started with sending out SMSs in masses. Then they discovered CPaaS, which means communication platforms as a service. And, all this in a smart way grew around. They started to produce platforms around that. We are connected to over 700 mobile network operators. But those three guys that are coming from this little village decided actually that the headquarters will stay in Vodnian, in a town which has like not more than 1,000 inhabitants, and it's mostly the inhabitants are olive farmers. Yeah, so you get a very good olive oil. And one of the most, let's say, innovative, high-tech technology campuses are right now in this village with a beautiful view on the Brioni Islands. Wow. And we are meeting there in normal times more often. But I will be there luckily in 2 weeks. So we will spend some quality time over there with our teams. And those two guys right now are owning a company that has 2,500 employees around the world with 70 offices. Wow. And it exploded from, a few guys somewhere in the province of Croatia. And right now, here we are. I'm one of two people in Austria, and I'm doing the business for the German-speaking countries.
Rafa, how did you come up to find Infobip? So was it a tip through the network, or you just went on karriere.at? If they exist over there? I don't think so.
I'm a special case. Let's put
Ah,
it like that. I was always interested in new things. Actually, my first job was in a innovative company which was founded early on called Bet and Twin, which rebranded then to BWin, so gambling
yeah.
online. So I started with online gambling when it was not even a product, and then went on over fintech payments, innovative telecom solutions. I was working for the telecoms as well. And this way, actually, Infobip found me. And I was approached by the guys, and I mean, you can't say no. You can't say no to it's a big company by now, but it's a
Yeah.
company that is so interesting, so multicultural, so young, especially. And on top, it's a pleasure to work for those guys because it's so innovative as well, and it easily sells everywhere. So they found me. This is it.
Good story. And how did you find your way to Vienna? Was it through the big win or some other ways?
No, so I was 14, so I'm one of those in your little flock that have not decided on their own to come to Austria. So I came with my parents to Vienna in 1989. So right after the border was opened to the west in Poland. This typical Gastarbeiter story where, the parents are looking for new opportunities for a better life. I mean, it's not that far away. You have Polish around the world. So it could be Canada, it could be Australia, who knows? But Vienna was the choice. And, the only one thing that was difficult for me, it's the end of the ground school. So I had to start over without any words in German over here. So naturally, my first allies were guys from former Yugoslavia because the language was similar. I had to use even German learning books for strangers in Yugoslav, in Serbian or Croatian. So yeah, that was funny.
And how was for your parents back then? Did they speak the language?
Actually, my father did.
Okay.
He studied Germanistics. That was most probably as well main of the reasons why we end up here. But my mother didn't, so it was hard for her, obviously, as an adult to learn a new language.
And for you, I assume it was easy back in school, no?
Yeah, when you're a teenager, learning a new language, especially when you're surrounded by it, it's not that difficult, yeah.
And what do you remember from those days? Fun,
fast. It was end of the 80s, so crazy times, Falco, stuff like that.
Tell us, no, I don't know. And probably most of the viewers, yeah.
It back then, you have to say, when I look back into those times, Austria was really a place for its own. It was not that international, especially Vienna as well. Vienna was maybe international on the level of, on the high level, like the United Nations, and being the meeting point between the West and the East. But the regular people were really focused on the local things. And Vienna had no like international shops or shop chains. You had to buy stuff, in a regular clothing shop. You had Austrian brands, you had Viennese shops where you go to buy a jacket, and it was so different because the choice was as well very limited. But for somebody who comes from Poland, where people were queuing up when shoes were available in shops, that was a big time of crisis. It was, for me, it was like a kaleidoscope of new things. I remember when I came on the first day, I got a coin, 5 shillings from my father. Okay. And I went to the shop, and the first thing that I bought was chewing gum in a tube, because it was so crazy, it was unimaginable for me that there is something like chewing gum and it's in a tube, like toothpaste, and that guy can remember. It was, I was overwhelmed in the beginning. Yeah. But Austria, it was a very own place, distanced from all the other European countries. And yeah, people were concentrated on going for holidays, you know, to Croatia or to Italy. Like only very few people were traveling to, you know, to some other destinations. Nobody, of course, as well to the east, because that was considered as a, you know, communistic part, and then filled with penguins and polar bears or whatever.
What a shift, you know, years later. So now you can tell stories to your kids. Like my father used to tell us, like the you know the 60s or 50s and 60s. How was it? You know, unimaginable in some aspects, like, you know, something that you cannot think of.
It's really far away. Yeah, it's a different country right now.
Yeah,
far more international as well, because the business is thriving in Austria, and you have so many companies that are like their business is targeting the east or the west, or they are global. So a lot of people came to Austria that you have interviewed as well, just because those companies are based here.
Absolutely. Coming back to IoT, Rafa, how do you see it in the future? So is it still, you know, getting adapted more, or is it still hyped, or for the certain industries? What do you see nowadays?
I mean, it's just like with the people. The machines need to communicate with each other. IoT is as a big picture, like synchronization of the machine world. Yeah. So, and as well connecting the machine world to the human world. So there needs to be something like a automated system environment running, environment that learns as well with artificial intelligence, with machine learning and so on, that works independently from the people. So, and then of course everything is connected via net. That's why internet is the main headline here. So IoT will grow, will become smarter. We will create much smarter systems that will create new industries in the future. People will do more sophisticated work. Obviously, that will take away a lot of work that is being done right now, but people will be more, let's say, in charge of certain controlling aspects. So IoT will become more important, will become more developed, and hopefully it will create as well new fields where people were potentially not that wise to work in this environment, because they would have to program everything. They will be able to create new things much more easily, because the machines will do the pre-work for them, the footwork. And obviously world will learn to communicate with each other in a different way.
Like you said, long time ago, Vienna was very different, and we can imagine that life in 5 to 10 years will be way, way different. I remember back in 2015 was still the discussion about, you know, the cloud, that will never happen. We will never put anything in the cloud, especially here in the DACH region. And there was always, the big 2020, billions of connected devices. Then was 2025, the next milestone that is going to be reached in the IoT. Yeah, those reports live, like you see the numbers, like, wow, that's not possible. But then somehow, they don't reach them, but they come to a certain point that you see that, there's no way back.
Exactly. And it's, with each and every year, it's shifting, it's changing itself as well. So
without us really, noticing that much, it happens like much as well organically, that things get driven further. Rafa, you said one interesting thing, and that is that you are only a second person here at Infobip. I will assume that you're working from home more or less since you joined the company, right? Any tips, for people who jumped onto this home office because of Corona and now continue doing that? So how do you manage, how do you stay productive and do all the things that you want to do, or at least, what you have to do? What are your best practices?
Obviously, everybody is different, first of all. But for me, it's important that I can go outside. Yeah. So you are deep into the topic. You're writing a few mails. You have calls. You have Teams, Zooms, or whatever. I need to get out, even if it's a bad weather. Take my dog out with me. Luckily, I'm surrounded by woods, so I can go into the forest. I can run a little bit. I was always looking for the woods, the outside where you can load the batteries. But my tip is to, get some air into the brain, get out, do some effort to sweat a little bit, maybe running or something like that. It's like a reload, for your body and your mind. This is all these months right now. It's you can say years already.
Yeah.
You try a lot of things, but it's the basics that you discover someday. So you need to get out. You need to, it's the worst when you spend like 8 straight hours in front of the monitor. I did it, and everybody knows it's not good for you. So this is it. Many people are meditating. Many people are, doing other things, cooking or whatever. For me, it's the fresh air that is the biggest quality.
I listened recently to one of the talks about mental health and staying fit, and one of the things that that expert mentioned was these micro breaks as well, like you're mentioning. So like just go out and have a walk or do something. Just not sit for hours in front of the computer. Just go out and get some fresh air and as well fresh energy. When you change the environment and when you talk to different people, you just get new fresh insights. Otherwise you just zoomed in.
Yeah. And like in our case, we have kids, so in the lockdown you are being anyway distracted. So when they couldn't go to school, it was like a constant distraction from. That's sometimes useful as well, because your mind is somewhere totally else. But yeah, to the people with kids, and enjoy it because it's just healthy.
Yeah, that's true. Rafa, how would you describe the Polish community in Vienna? Is there a Polish community in Vienna? Like you meet, do something, have certain goals, vision?
Yes, you could divide the Polish community in, let's say, the older people, mostly with interest that are not being covered by the young generation. So they are meeting, in galleries for classical music stuff, concerts, readings, stuff like that. And there is this more chaotic young community. So you have initiatives. We are maybe, because of the closeness to Poland, because some of them drive 3 hours and they are already with their families. It's not that, let's say, the connection is not that big. So there are no like huge communities meeting like every week, bi-weekly or monthly. There are like theater groups, there are groups of interest, there are Facebook. For right now with Facebook you have groups like Polish Mothers. I know it from my wife. You have groups around certain interests as well. It's starting to develop as well. There are even business groups slowly, which is interesting as well. But it's a more or less a loose community, although there are like almost, I think, more than 50,000 Polish here in Vienna. But it's a very fluid community because there is as well a lot of movement. Young people are coming and going. So it's maybe a little bit different to bigger communities like the ex-Yugoslav community or Turkish community. They have a more, let's say, sometimes even a coordinated, planned community life.
Yeah.
This is a good, actually, description. There is no planned community life here. It's more spontaneous.
Okay. No, we come here and we stay, so we don't move, and we build our lives. And as you said, back I remember my uncles used to come from Yugoslavia time. They used to come, but that was to work here in Austria or in Germany. That was a different. They would come alone without a family. So now it's as well different. Nowadays we come here as a whole family, and when we come here, we plan to stay more or less. There's no much, a little bit of movement, but more or less you're around in Vienna and you decided to stay here. And it's important for the kids, especially then when you get kids, is like, okay, how to maintain, that they feel to talk to other kids in their own, in their first language and so on and so forth. So it's as well driven by that.
Yeah, and we used to live already outside of Austria, so it's was connected to my let's say professional activity. So we used to live in Malta already. We used to live in Germany. I was working for a French company where I had like half a year in Paris as well. So it the Polish are more spontaneous to move. So we tried everything, but in the end we came back to Vienna. So we stayed here.
So you made a circle and came back. Rafa, you mentioned that you have an extensive career and you have been moving around. So how do you build your network, professional, and do they stay only professional? So sometimes probably you invite someone to a private life and private circle.
I have historically already a big network because I was working for big companies, innovative companies, companies that had strong B2B ties to other companies. So this is one thing from my professional life. It adds up slowly. There are more contacts, but my main and most successful channel of networking is obviously LinkedIn. Yeah. So if you learn to work your way in LinkedIn, it's great. But I'm a big fan of personal interactions. So whatever I'm trying to do when I'm responsible for a certain territory is to as well create workshops, invite people that I know, invite people that I don't know, ask people that I know to invite people they know.
Yeah.
So it works best. It's like a accelerator of networks, of contacts. So you need to be active online, offline as well. So for example, right now I'm responsible for mobile network operators in 6 countries. And if you are speaking about one mobile network operator, thousands of people, and if we are doing like several things that needs the focus of the mobile operator. So along with mobile network operators, it's important to filter out who is the responsible to get through one person to the other person, to arrange things, workshops. But with our platform, with our headquarters in nice places of the world, it's not easy to invite people as well and build up networks. I love to go to business lunches, and I'm a strong believer that a business that you conduct during a lunch, you will conduct it much faster, much in a pleasant way, of course, and the relationship with people is much deeper. So, personal interactions are the goal, but sometimes you need to trigger them online.
Do you have a special or favorite restaurant in Vienna where you go for business lunch?
Yes, and it's actually it's called Dubrovnik in the 9th district in the Berggasse. They have a very, very nice team, a very nice restaurant, always fresh fish, very good food, and the owner is like personally involved, in the menus, and he's a great host as well. And the best restaurants are, they are defined by best hosts,
True.
And there is one in Klosterneuburg that needs your attention as well. Nobody knows, most of the people don't know. There is something like Happy Land. It's like a sports complex. And there is a sports pub run by a good friend of mine, Dalibor, who is coming from Croatia. And you would be smashed, you would be surprised which menu they have. So there are something like geheim tips to go in Vienna. So this is a good place to go as well, with a great host, with a great owner of this pub, spending some good time chatting. You can come alone and you find people to chat.
That's a good tip. Maybe next year we can organize a Making It in Austria at that place, the good food and so on. So it's a really, really good tip. I wanted to ask you about LinkedIn. Do you, by the way, use Sales Navigator, or do you use all these premium services of LinkedIn, and do you find it useful?
In the beginning, I was thinking LinkedIn alone might be enough. But then I looked into, and obviously we have as well workshops with LinkedIn people, and Navigator is a great tool. It's a great tool that you can use. It's a great tool to get to know more as well about your network, about people that are not even yet in your network. It's a great tool of insights as well, because try to follow each and every post of people that are in your LinkedIn network. It's not possible. So that can be filtered out in the Navigator as well. So you know exactly what they have in their minds in this moment. You are informed about a lot of initiatives, and you update yourself as well in the industry where you're working with. So it's really a great tool. It simplifies your work in LinkedIn as much as possible.
Cool. So I haven't put much attention to it yet. So good tip. Rafa, how about before we wrap up, I usually ask about the books that you read or the book that you would recommend. Nowadays, podcasts are also allowed because people are now moving to podcasts, YouTube channels, and so on. So what's on your mind?
I'm a big history fan, and recently I'm into podcasts, BBC podcasts about Vikings. And one of the guys that was doing a podcast was actually speaking about his journey on the Viking ship that was built as a replica by Norwegians. And this guy is writing books about Vikings. So my first book that I will share with you is maybe not the most sophisticated literature, but it's Raven Blood Eye. Yeah, a Viking ship. But I value this writer because he tries to live the life of those guys. And historically, I'm interested as well. But another book that has as well, let's say, a little bit with history. By working in a Croatian company, I try to learn a little bit Croatian as well. So for the learning and for the education, I'm trying to read Ivo Andrić in Croatian. So the Bridge of Adrina, it's the way Andrić writes about the multicultural aspect of the life, in the 18th, 19th, and 20th century in his books is amazing. The variety of the multicultural life in this part of Europe, where everybody was taking the best of the other part, It's simply amazing. And, you read the mentality of the people in this region, where it comes from, actually, when you read Andrić's books. And, it's just like a cultural, delicious food for your mind when you read The Bridge of Adrina, for example. Yeah.
Good. Nowadays we would use a lot of that multicultural, and then taking the best out of all worlds, connecting the worlds. Now that would be definitely something that's wished for.
Yeah.
Rafa, thank you so much for being our guest. It was fun. We explored all the ways, from IoT to LinkedIn to, special places for food and drinks and pleasant guests and the owners. So thank you so much. It was a real pleasure. I'm looking forward to see you at one of the next gatherings of Making It in Austria.
Looking forward to it.
Looking forward. And thank you everyone for watching, subscribing, liking, sharing. I will link the contact details from Rafa through LinkedIn, so you can get in touch with him. If you know any great restaurant in Vienna, I'm sure he will be very much looking forward to that, or anything around IoT. Thank you so much and have a wonderful evening. Thank you, Rafa.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.